you also have a lot of versatility with Kerfoot in his
Yep.
ability to play center, and you can shift him up to that left wing beside Tavares if you really wanted to. Like, that is the one thing I will say about Kerfoot, is that you can kind of play him anywhere, and his speed and his skill will allow him to kind of fit in a bit.
And grit,
But
actually, because the not that he's gritty, but that he showed a lot of fight at times when against Columbus, when it looked like few players were up for it. He showed a little bit of a drive and determination to win the puck back in certain battles, for sure.
Yeah, and I think from definitely the outlook of next season is that you kind of want to look at it and be like, I don't want there to be a place for Nick Robertson. I want him to earn a place.
Yep.
I want him to push a guy out, but I don't want him to be like, oh, this is where I'm going to go. And this is like, I'm going to be third line left winger. I already know that. Let me just go into camp and kind of get my feet wet a bit. No, I want him to be like, there's not a spot open for me. I'm going to take someone's job. Right.
Yeah.
That's what I want. Cause I want that kind of tenacity and that hunger within this team, because I think so much has been given. Not a lot's been taken from this team. And that's why a guy like Joe Thornton, I think, will be so valuable. But back to Kerfoot, it kind of comes back to how much you feel comfortable paying Mikheyev and how much work you still want to do. Because from my perspective, at least, I know Kyle Dubas came out yesterday and said that he's done.
Yeah, or at least nothing significant.
Nothing significant. Yeah. From my perspective, that's a mistake. Because in all fairness, you lost 2 top 4 defensemen. Whether they played well or not, there were 2 of your top 4 guys in Barrie and Ceci, and you've added 1. Like, well, and TJ Brodie's an upgrade on either one you want to pick. But sure. I still think an upgrade could have been made. And so, if you want to, are you really comfortable with Justin Hall being your second pair guy?
The problem is,
I mean, he's good value at $2 million, but is that, like, is the defense is better, but is it better enough? So from that perspective, it's, Hall at $2 million, Kerfoot at 3.4. Is there a trade to be made to bring in a top 4 guy who can clear those salaries off, move those 2 guys out, bring in a top 4 and free up a little more cap space to kind of bring back Mikheyev, which I think they should probably do.
But would you rather bring, if you have the choice, would you rather bring Mikheyev back or Dermott?
This is going to pain me to say, because I've loved Dermott ever since we drafted him. And I still think he's going to be a great NHL defenseman, but he's not a right side. He's not a right side defenseman. And he's blocked on the left side. Like, he's not better than Morgan Rielly. Riley's a top pairing guy. Yep. Muzzin is perfectly slotted on that second pair left shot.
Absolutely.
You got the best KHL defenseman in the world right now, Mikko Lehtinen, and you got your top prospect in Rasmus Sandin, all left shot guys.
Yep.
So as much as I want to say, hey, let's keep Dermott, it's probably not fair to him, and it's probably not productive for the team to keep him. You have a lot less depth on that right side. So, I mean, the rumor that was floated around was that Florida asked for Dermott and Johnson from Mackenzie Weegar. And I think from all sources is that, like, okay, you traded Johnson for Joey Anderson. That's fine. If you liked Joey Anderson, that was the move to make. But I think if you have a chance to get a guy like Mackenzie Weegar, he just slots perfectly into that second pair with Jake Muzzin.
Yeah.
You can move out Hall at $2 million. You'd pay probably Mackenzie Weegar $3.5. That's probably what he'd come in at, because he's an RFA. And you're just starting to solidify that group a little more.
Yeah.
So that would be my kind of thoughts on kind of the blue line. But I think you only move out Kerfoot is if you know you're going to be able to bring back Mikheyev at a number that makes sense. Because if you're trading Kerfoot at 3.4 and you have to come back and pay Mikheyev at 3.
But I don't think arbitration's gonna give Mikheyev 3, just because it's so tough, because it's been so little of him to base it off of enough of a valuation to give him 3. I mean, you never know with arbitration.
But he gets what he gets, and I guess when we get that number back, it's our hands are tied at that point, right? Like,
but
apparently
that might be why
he's asked for over double what we offered him, and I would assume what Kyle offered him was 1.5 to 1.7. That's probably the ballpark and where the Leafs want to pay him. So if he's asking for double, that's that's over $3 million, and it wouldn't shock me to say, he'll probably get 2.5. 2.75 through an arbitrator, and that number, look, in a normal world, if the cap was going up, I was prepared for that number to be
higher than
2.5. I was prepared for that number to be okay with us going forward with the cap going up, but with the cap staying where it is.
Yep. Now
maybe if it's $1 million less than Kerfoot, you say, hey, you do it, and you say Mikheyev's going to be on the second line. You have cover at third and fourth line with Thornton and Spezza, and you can kind of makeshift some other guys there as well.
Yeah.
And you move Kerfoot.
Well, there's also
and then
Travis
you save
Boyd.
That 1 point. Yeah, well, I don't know enough about Travis Boyd to say that he's going to be anything more than a fourth liner.
But what I'm saying is, like, push comes to shove, if you really decide that Mikheyev is the guy, if he gets 3 or whatever it is, and you have to move on, you want Mikheyev, you have to move on from Kerfoot. It's going to be bitter, but push comes to shove, the Leafs could do it in swapping those contracts out. Of course, I think, we'd probably agree that you'd rather keep Kerfoot based on the stuff we'd already talked about with his versatility and his ability to, just brings a little bit more drive and excitement to the team. Mikheyev, sure, but what about the deal for Wayne Simmonds?
I mean, I've been wanting Wayne Simmonds on the Leafs for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, it's like 5 years. Really, if you want a good Wayne Simmonds, you're 6 years too late. But
not 6 years. You're probably 3 years too late.
Well,
yeah, 6 years ago was probably his 30 goal prime. But
you were never getting him 6 years ago, for sure. But
that's like all Leafs fans saying that they want Tom Wilson, and just like it's.
Oh yeah, but obviously Tom Wilson's coming home. Eventually.
Yeah, that's the hope one day. But no, in the sense that if you're gonna have Marner and Nylander as your top 2 right wingers, like, even if you brought home Wilson, he's gonna be a third liner. Like,
yeah, but I think to bring Wilson, you're not going to keep both of those guys. If that's your theory, you're not keeping.
Maybe
you have to get rid of one.
That's
of them.
a whole different conversation. Of course, actually gets better or not. But
yeah, of course. But like Wayne Simmonds at 1 year, 1.5 mil seems like it's a bit of a steep number for a guy on decline, and a guy who obviously brings the physical edge that Toronto has lacked, but would you rather have the Wayne Simmonds as he is now, or would you rather have that 1.5 mil space where you could have more leeway with getting someone like Mikheyev back?
No, because I think what Wayne Simmonds brings is what the Leafs needed, and so I think, like, you're not a 1 year, $1.5 million deal is not overexposing you, and I think the value that Simmonds is going to bring is worth.
It's waiting.
Like, there's not a number that there's not really a number that you can put on that. This team, as I kind of said and alluded to earlier, was they kind of needed a kick in the butt kind of thing. That loss to Columbus, although I wasn't surprised, was an eye opener for Kyle Dubas, because I think that was the first time that he had to admit to himself that it's not working.
I think it was his style that it showed his style of a team is just not ready. The NHL isn't ready for his style of makeup of a team. Like, if you want the Dubas small and speedy and quick and agile team, that might be where the league is heading. It looks like the league is heading, inching ever closer to that kind of, less contact, more speed style. But it's just not where the league is at right now.
I think it persists almost in the sense that, like, Pittsburgh kind of did that for their back-to-back championships, they were kind of smaller, skilled, and everyone was like, we need to build a team that's small, skilled, that's going to thrive at any time of the year.
Yep.
Last 3 Cup champions, I mean, you got Washington, you got St. Louis, and you got Tampa. Now, to be fair, Tampa is probably the highest skilled of those 3 teams.
And
but what did Tampa do before actually succeeding? It was they got bigger. Like, I mean, Washington and St. Louis are big teams, right? Like I have no doubt that Kyle Dubas's plan could have been very successful in a regular season. And we've seen that. Like, we've been a decent regular season team.
Yeah.
But hockey is just so different when it gets to the playoffs. And I don't think anyone can argue that now after seeing Tampa change it up a bit, getting a little grittier, getting a little bit more 200-foot players, and actually winning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, as I said, the loss to Columbus was Kyle's eye-opener that there needs to be a balance. And so I think that's what he kind of did this summer. Now, whether he overcorrected is a different discussion, because our team is a lot slower now. There's no debating that.
Yeah, of course.
But you can't. It's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't in that sense. So you got to kind of give him props and respect where it's due, in the sense that he said he was going to get more physical, and he actually went out and did it. Because a lot of the time GMs will say that and say, like, the opportunity wasn't there, and we tried to do it, but we couldn't, and
the price was too high.
Exactly. And that's kind of what you kind of almost expect from most GMs, is that they're going to kind of say one thing and do another.
Yeah.
To Kyle's credit, and look, to be honest, I've never been a huge Kyle fan.
That's for sure.
That's for sure. But he's a smart guy, and I think this does show that he's self-aware, which is the most important thing, because he realized that it wasn't working and needed changes. Because I never wanted big changes, massive changes to this team. Like, the talent's there, but as I've been saying for a couple seasons now, there need to be a balance. And so I think this was Kyle Dubas understanding that himself and implementing it.
Now,
so Kyle Dubas at Simmonds at 1.5 is just, yes, he's not going to be the Wayne Simmonds of 5 years ago where he's scoring 30 goals. But to be fair, he's not, like, that was him on the first power play unit, not on, a top 6 Philadelphia team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he doesn't have to be like that. And you look at the one example I kind of bring up is, Corey Perry signed a 1-year, smaller term deal with Dallas last year to kind of be their third line right winger. Didn't have a great regular season, but anyone who watched the Dallas Stars in the playoffs knew how valuable Corey Perry was. For sure, he was.
Yeah.
And they got to the Cup final. So you need guys like that who can just kind of who've had success and can kind of bring guys up. So, and kind of get guys into the game, because that's so often a time that the Leafs were just kind of lackadaisical. And if their skill wasn't working that night, they checked out.
Yep.
And so Wayne Simmonds and especially Joe Thornton,
Joe.
there's no taking games off now. Like, these kids no longer run the room. Like, they are not this kind of, we're the big kids who make millions of dollars, we can't be touched.
Yeah.
No, Joe Thornton will call out Austin Matthews.
I know, and I think
no fear.
And I think there's part of the it's not the fear, but it's part of just how John Tavares captains. Obviously we have no idea what it's like in the locker room. So it's really difficult, but you watch the post-practice scrums with Tavares and Matthews and these guys, and it doesn't sound like there's just on Tavares, it doesn't sound like he's the guy who's constantly ripping into them. It feels like he's more of the Patrick Marleau, like, let's just bring, I'll lead by example. And, Tavares is a classic, perfect lead by example captain who does all the hard work, who works his butt off in training, who works hard on the ice, who always tries hard and goes to the bad and dirty places of the ice to set the example. But I think when you bring in someone like Wayne Simmonds and someone like Joe Thornton. You've kept someone like Spezza, and even with someone like Bogosian coming in, like you're getting more of these characters that are gonna look at those other players, and even though they haven't been on the team yet, are gonna say, sort that out. Play like this, work harder here. You can't stop now. And I'm 41 and I'm doing this now. Like, I will show you. You're 23. Get going.
I mean, these are guys who are not scared of anyone. Like,
yeah.
and that's, I think, so often the time for the Leafs is that these kids have kind of been protected, not under the tyrannical rule of Babcock, but
yeah.
But they've kind of been protected in the sense that there's never really been guys who've really kind of pushed them. I think Jake Muzzin was kind of the first guy, and you can kind of tell that when he came in, I think there was a bit of an attitude change.
Yeah,
but I mean,
I think Riley
he can't do it alone because Riley didn't come in from the outside. Riley was there before these kids got there, and he grew into it. And I think he is the leader of that team. I think
agree.
Without a doubt, Morgan Riley is the A-dog in that dressing room. I think he's just the most social guy who kind of brings people together
and calls people out on their shit because he's been there.
Yeah,
but one voice. It's a big difference to have one voice doing it versus 3 or 4, real veterans of the game, not just of hockey, but like real Hall of Fame all-star type. I mean, in 2 of them, all-star type players.
And I think we forget how young Morgan still is. Like, Morgan's only, 25, 26? Like, he's still within, shooting distance of all these other guys in age. Yeah. So it's a bit different when someone, the same age as you is kind of calling you out. It's a little different when Joe Thornton, a first ballot Hall of Famer who's done everything except for win a cup, comes and calls you out, because no one in that dressing room has the kind of cachet to kind of ignore him. None of them can. Yep. Right? Like, what he says goes. And the only person he's not going to call out, I would say, is probably John Tavares, because he's the only one who doesn't need to be called out.
Because he's the okay.
I think he's quiet in the dressing room, but I don't think there's any problem with that, because I think there are captains all over this league. Like, I don't think Connor McDavid's the most vocal guy in that room, but Connor McDavid does it on the ice, and he does it in the locker room, in training and stuff like that. In the weight room, as long as you supplement leadership in other areas, like Bogosian, like Simmonds, like Thornton now, you can have a captain lead by example, right? So I think from that perspective, I'm all good with it. And I think it'll be interesting to see. I think it gives you a lot of options, but from that point on, I think there's definitely a little bit more of an attitude in that room, but an attitude in a good way.
Yeah.